Captain.
Private, take this, Sergeant Harrison, make certain that he acknowledges that he's received it.
Yes, Captain.
Here we are. Welcome to Fort Atkinson. I portray Captain Bennett Riley of the U.S. Rifle Regiment, stationed at Fort Atkinson from 1819 through 1827. However, the Rifle Regiment ceased being an independent regiment in 1821. Fort Atkinson, in the location it now sits, was here from 1820 till 1827, when the Army was moved away from here and the Prairie reclaimed the site. Now, as you see around me, this happens to be the quarters that the captain would have been given during the time that the fort was being built originally in the summer of 1820 and through to 1821. I refer to my quarters as a transitionary room because in it I have my office, I have my kitchen, I have my bedroom, and I have my social entertaining room. And this room all is about 18 by 20 feet in dimensions. Once the buildings that are being built for the officers are completed, the officers will vacate these rooms and these will become barracks. In the meantime, I have to live with these walls that look like the inside of a corn crib on the farm. But that's part of being in the military on the frontier. Yes, there is quite a bit of items there for a captain of a rifle unit to have. That's at a frontier military post. But a captain has to entertain the officers that are in rank above him so that he can present himself well in that rank of society. Now, a sergeant like myself would probably not have carried this much with him being part of the expedition. However, we have the luxury of a sutler store which would be able to order things for me that I would be able to put on my table, such as a vase for the prairie wildflowers that would happen to be found in the spring. The ladies always prefer a little bit of that. Rounds out the roughness of the men that have been tromping around in those fields. Now, such as you might see here, what would a captain of the rifle regiment be doing with a pie bird? I certainly don't do my own pies. But when one of the ladies happens to know that she's going to make some pies and would care to have one, I just happen to have one handy. That endears myself quite well with the fairer set of the society that is up here at the time. Now, you'll notice that we have the blue transferware. There has been found in the archaeology up here blue, red, yellow, green transferware. Some of it has been found under the buildings that were inhabited by the enlisted men. Now, the enlisted men were given tinware for their meals. Why there would be a transferware piece of china in the barracks of an enlisted man does cause a little bit of a question. Well, that type of a scenario is not hard to understand. It's a good possibility that a particular private was working on his off-duty hours for one of the officers' wives in their home. And of course, it just goes to put out a plate when you're entertaining that might have a chip or a crack in it. So at the end of that day, if the private impressed the lady of the house quite well, then he would be given a damaged plate of something that it was of his value and his income he couldn't afford to buy, but he was given it. He made it quite the thing to show and tell in the enlisted mess when he would have his meals. Obviously what would happen is it would end up getting broken somehow, and the shards of it would get swept between the floorboards, and it becomes part of the archaeology history of the fort.
is a rifleman's barracks. So riflemen would come in here and they would sleep and they would congregate when they were off duty. And what I just did was I basically was dismissed from the line and I was dressed into small clothes. Small clothes are the clothes that we would wear when we're not on duty, when we're dismissed, when we don't have anything to do. People would sleep head to toe in these bunks because the government basically just thought that if each soldier needed 18 inches and there was enough room to fit 2 soldiers on each bed, then it's a waste of resources to build more beds, a bed for each person. So there would be about 16 people in here because there's 8 bunks, and so people would sleep head to toe, and in the winter that would be really beneficial because you were issued 1 blanket per soldier, which means you would have 2 blankets if you have 2 soldiers in one bed, and you'd have another personal heater, which is the person next to you. Something that's interesting is parents started telling their children in the 1800s the phrase, "Good night, sleep tight, and don't let the bed bugs bite." This is actually tied to these beds because the phrase "sleep tight" refers to the fact that the beds were held with ropes underneath. So if the ropes weren't tight, you'd sag in your bed and it wouldn't be comfortable. And the bed bugs are a reference to the inside of the beds. They were filled with things you'd find in the forest. They were filled with pine needles and other things you'd find in the forest, which obviously the forest has bugs. So there would be insects that would burrow into the beds, which would obviously upset the children. I started volunteering here at Fort Atkinson 3 years ago, I believe, and it's always really fascinated me the way we do things up here, because I feel that education is very important, especially historical education, because Winston Churchill said those who fail to learn from history are condemned to repeat it. And I feel like the education of history is very important in the United States of America. I really enjoy being up here because obviously it's a way to educate others, it's a way to help others learn, and I'm doing it for me because I enjoy it, but I'm also doing it for everyone else.
And so I encourage anyone that would want to join us. We certainly would like to have you. This is a unique place, and when you get, as I call it, bitten by the bug of Fort Atkinson, you may find out why we do this.